Ladies, I'm not here to talk about playing games, manipulation, or being fake. I'm here to talk about protecting your power, your peace, and your purpose. Certain things, 5 to be exact, that you should never hand over on a silver platter to any man. I don't care if he's your boyfriend, husband, crush, soulmate. These are sacred. These are yours. Your worth is not a debate. It's not a negotiation, and it's certainly not a discount tag someone gets to bargain with. The moment you wake up to the second you go to sleep, your worth is stitched into your very existence. But here's the truth most women don't hear enough. You were never supposed to outsource your value to a man, not to his attention, his approval, or his commitment. And yet, time and time again, women fall into the trap of allowing how a man treats them to become a mirror for how they see themselves. It starts subtly. He compliments you, and you feel beautiful. He texts back quickly, and you feel important. He calls you everything, and suddenly your identity starts to wrap itself around that validation. What happens when the attention fades? What happens when the compliments stop? Do you stop feeling beautiful? Do you stop being enough? That's the danger. When your sense of self is tied to someone else's perception, it becomes fragile. It breaks when he forgets. It crumbles when he criticizes. It vanishes when he leaves. That is not power, that is dependence. There's a narrative, often unspoken but deeply felt, that tells women, you're enough if someone chooses you. You're worthy if you're married by a certain age. You're valuable if he posts about you. You're special if he makes you a priority. That belief is a lie. You are enough simply because you exist. Not because someone noticed. Not because someone stayed. Not because someone made you feel chosen. When you truly own your self-worth, you stop needing to be picked. You stop seeking validation like it's oxygen. You stop chasing men who breadcrumb you with attention just to keep you emotionally tethered. You no longer dress for male approval. You no longer shrink your voice in rooms just to be likable. You no longer tolerate bare minimum effort because at least he's trying. No. Your standards rise when your self-worth is rooted in you, not in him. But here's the hard part. Owning your worth means you'll have to let some things go. You'll walk away from men who call you too much. You'll stop over-explaining why you deserve more. You'll start saying no without guilt. And yes, it might get lonely, might not understand. But you won't compromise yourself just to feel loved. Because love that demands your self-betrayal is not love. It's control. Self-worth is your compass. It guides your boundaries, your choices, your energy. And when you protect it fiercely, something shifts. You stop overperforming, over-apologizing. You stop trying to earn what should be freely given respect, consistency, truth. You begin to trust your voice. You start taking up space without needing permission. You sit at your own table instead of begging for a seat at his. You stop trying to fix men who don't want to grow so you can feel enough. And again, you realize you're not hard to love. You've just been loving in places that lack depth. This is not about being arrogant, being anchored in who you are with or without male attention, anchored in the knowledge that your value doesn't increase with compliments or decrease with rejection, anchored in the quiet confidence that even if no one claps for you doing the work, you're still worthy, you're still whole, because once you realize that, no man, no matter how charming, attractive, emotionally intelligent, gets to hold the remote control to your self-esteem. Your dreams are not up for debate. They are not optional, not hobbies or distractions from real life. They are a core part of who you are, the fire that keeps you moving forward, the vision that wakes you up in the morning. But too many women have been conditioned to silence those dreams the moment a man enters the picture, not because they don't believe in them, but because they're afraid of being too ambitious, too driven, or too much. There is this unspoken fear. You dream too loud. If you shine too bright, you might intimidate him. You might lose him. So what do? You shrink, you soften your voice. You start talking less about your goals and more about his. You pretend you're okay with being second, third, or last on his priority list, as long as he stays. Here's the brutal truth. A man who is threatened by your dreams was never going to support your success. A man who needs you to play small in order for him to feel big is not a partner. He's a limitation. Your dreams need space, not permission. They don't need approval. They need action. And they certainly don't need to be explained to someone who doesn't even try to understand them. Because let's be clear, dream is not just about achievement. It's about identity. When you abandon your dreams to make a relationship work, you abandon a piece of yourself, and no amount of love or attention will ever fill that void. You start to feel it over time. That quiet dissatisfaction, that restless energy, that sense that you're meant for more, but you're stuck. You start to resent him, maybe quietly, maybe not. Not because of who he is, but because of who you stopped being. And that resentment is not your fault. It's the voice of the woman inside you who's tired of hiding. Not every man can hold space for a woman with vision, and that's okay. Your job to dim your light so he can see his own reflection. The right man won't compete with you. He'll clap for you. He'll challenge you to think bigger. He'll ask about your goals and actually listen. He'll stand beside you, not in front of you. And until you meet a man like that, protect your vision like it's sacred, because it is. Your goals don't need to be put on pause for anyone's comfort. Your growth doesn't need to slow down to match someone else's pace. You don't need to make yourself smaller to make a relationship work. If anything, your dream should be a filter. If he can't respect it, he doesn't belong in the room. To yourself to chase what sets your soul on fire, even if you're chasing it alone, even if no one understands, even if it scares you. Because one day, you'll look back and realize that the most dangerous thing you ever did wasn't failing. It was giving up on your purpose just to make someone else feel secure. Your dream is your responsibility. No one else will fight for it like you can. No one else will see it the way you do. And if someone makes you feel like you have to choose between love and purpose, that's not love. That's a warning sign. Financial independence is not just about money. It's about power. It's about the ability to make decisions without begging for permission, about walking away when something no longer serves you without worrying whether you'll survive. Yet too often, women are told directly or indirectly that financial freedom is a bonus, not a necessity. That having man who provides is the ultimate security. But the moment your survival depends on someone else's paycheck, your freedom becomes fragile. Because what happens when he starts using money as leverage? What happens when disagreements turn into threats? When love becomes conditional on obedience? Suddenly, you're not in a relationship, you're in a transaction. And you feel it in your gut, that trapped, silenced, anxious feeling. Fear of speaking your truth, because you don't want to rock the boat and risk losing the lifestyle he provides. Financial dependence creates emotional dependence. It creates a power imbalance where one person holds the keys, not just to the house or the bank account, but to your choices, your freedom, your peace of mind. Financial freedom for women isn't a luxury. It's survival. It's dignity. It's being able to say no without trembling. It's being able to walk away without worrying how the bills will get paid. It's being able to leave an abusive situation, not because you wanna, but because you can. Start small, learning how to earn, learning how to save, learning how to ask for more, whether it's a raise, a contract, or a price for your work. Understanding your worth not just emotionally, but economically. It's refusing to be the woman who's always helping others build their dreams, never investing in her own. And let's be clear, you don't need millions in your account to be free. You just need options. You need enough clarity, courage, consistency to build something that's yours, something no one can take away. Because that's what real power looks like. Not diamonds on your wrist, control over your life. The world will tell you to find a rich man, but I'm telling you, become your own safety net. Be the woman who doesn't need anyone but chooses wisely anyway. Be the woman who doesn't confuse provision with love. Be the woman who doesn't trade silence for stability. Financial independence gives you choices to leave, to rest, to build, to protect your energy. It gives you boundaries that can't be negotiated. It gives you the strength to say, I'm not afraid to be alone because I'm not afraid to stand on my own. When you have your own, you're no longer impressed by superficial things. You don't fall for empty promises or flashy gestures. You're grounded. You're focused. You're free to choose a partner, not a provider. And that choice, made from strength, not survival, changes everything. Emotional privacy is power. It's not secrecy. It's not coldness. Playing games. It's the quiet, confident decision to protect your inner world. Your thoughts, your fears, your past wounds, until someone proves they can hold it with care. Too many women have been taught that vulnerability is the fast track to intimacy, that telling a man everything right away is a way to build trust. But here's the truth. Not everyone deserves front row access to your emotional life. Some people are drawn to your openness not because they want to understand you, but because they want to study your insecurities. And later, use them as leverage. The details you reveal in a moment of honesty can become weapons in the wrong hands. Suddenly, that one thing you told him in confidence shows up in an argument, twisted, used against you. That one story about your past becomes a punchline when he's frustrated. Fear you confided becomes proof that you're too sensitive or too much. That's the danger of premature vulnerability. When you share too much too fast, you build an illusion of closeness, not real connection. It feels intimate, but it's one-sided. You're exposed, and he's still guarded. You're trying to bond, collecting information. That's not trust. That's imbalance. And in that imbalance, emotional manipulation thrives. Holding emotional privacy doesn't mean you're closed off. It means you're discerning. You share with those who have earned it. Not because they ask, because they show you over time that they are safe, consistent, and emotionally mature. They don't dismiss your feelings. They don't rush your process. They don't try to fix you, control you, or silence you. They listen. They respect. They stay steady. You don't owe anyone your story. You don't owe anyone your pain wrapped in poetic explanations. You are allowed to keep parts of yourself sacred. You are allowed to say, I'm not ready to talk about that. You are allowed to move slowly, to feel someone's energy before offering access to your own. That is self-respect. That is emotional intelligence. Emotional privacy is also about knowing that not all comfort is love. Some people are incredibly charming, disarming even. They'll get you talking about your childhood, your heartbreaks, your biggest regrets, and they'll seem so interested. But then you realize they're not sharing anything real about themselves. It's all surface, all control, all performance. You're the one bleeding honesty, and they're just observing, and when you finally need support, when you need to be held, they're gone, distant, confused. I didn't know it was that serious. You never said you needed help. The truth is, they liked the access, but not the responsibility that came with it. And that's the danger of being emotionally naked with someone who isn't emotionally available. Keeping some things to yourself is not you being guarded. It's you being wise. It's you protecting the most sacred parts of your spirit from people who haven't shown the depth or care to hold them. And in doing that, you create space for real, grounded, trustworthy love to find you. Not love that demands instant access. Love that's patient enough to earn it. Your insecurities are not conversation starters. Not confessions you owe a man to prove you're real or authentic. And they're certainly not pieces of yourself you need to lay bare in hopes that he'll reassure you or stay. The moment you start leading with your flaws, pointing out what you think is wrong with you, what you're lacking, what you're afraid he'll notice, you've already handed him the script for how to see you. It starts subtly. You downplay your strengths. You highlight your flaws before he even gets the chance. I know I talk too much. I've always had trust issues. I'm not as successful as other women. You think you're being transparent? What you're doing is asking for acceptance from a place of fear. You're hoping that if you name it first, it won't be used against you. That's not empowerment. That's preemptive self-sabotage. When you give someone a list of the things you don't love about yourself, you're essentially saying, here, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm worthy anyway. And even if he does, even if he says all the right things, you'll still doubt it because it didn't come from your own belief. It came from desperation for validation. Some men will feed off that vulnerability, sense the cracks in your confidence, and use them as control points. You're lucky I even stayed. No one else would put up with that. You're too emotional. I'm just being honest. That's not honesty. That's manipulation wrapped in pseudo-truth. And it only works because you gave him the blueprint. Confidence isn't about pretending you have no insecurities, about refusing to weaponize them against yourself. It's knowing what you're working on and still showing up whole. Still showing up proud. Still expecting respect, not pity. Because a man who truly respects you doesn't need you to explain your worth. He sees it. He feels it. He mirrors it back. Keeping your insecurities private doesn't make you fake. It makes you smart. It gives you the space to deal with your doubts without turning them into a performance. You don't need to test a man's love by dragging him through your pain. You don't need to unload your worst fears in the first week just to see if he'll still choose you. Time and a place for vulnerability. But not from a place of fear. Not from a place of, will you still love me if you see this? Because that's not vulnerability. That's a cry for rescue. And you don't need to be rescued. You need to be reminded of your power, of your progress, of your wholeness. You don't need to show a man the places where you feel unlovable to earn his love. You need to love yourself enough not to hand him the power to decide. You're allowed to keep your growth private. You're allowed to work through your insecurities quietly without offering them up as currency in a relationship. Because when you finally meet a man who's grounded, healthy, and emotionally intelligent, he won't need your brokenness to feel strong. He'll want your wholeness, and he'll add to it. Your future plans are not public property, are not blueprints to be handed out to every man you date. They are not promises you owe someone just because they showed interest. Too often, women are conditioned to wrap their lives around the potential of a relationship, to share their dreams too soon, to reshape their path before it's even solid, fit in with a man's vision. But when you start revealing your future too early, you risk one of two things. Either he uses it to mold you into what he wants. Worse, he uses it to mirror your goals, pretending to align so he can gain trust without intention. Real talk, some men perform compatibility. They listen to your dreams, your values, your goals, and then shape their response to match what they think you want to hear. It feels perfect, like fate, but it's often strategy, because the more they agree with your direction, the more emotionally safe you feel. And once you're emotionally attached, they shift, they delay, they distract. Suddenly, you're in a relationship that's moving nowhere, except away from everything you said you wanted. That's why your long-term plans, your vision for your career, your family, your lifestyle, spiritual growth need to stay protected until someone earns the right to walk beside them, not perform them, not manipulate them, but truly align with them. It's not about being secretive. It's about being intentional. Not everyone who smiles at you deserves to know the next 5 years of your life. Not every man who takes you on 3 great dates deserves to hear your deepest vision. When you speak your plans too soon, you give him the power to shape them, not with his actions, but with your hope. And let's be honest, women are often taught to compromise before commitment even exists, to adjust, to accommodate, to make room. But if you're not careful, your future gets diluted before it even begins. Suddenly, you're in a relationship, your goals feel like a burden, or worse, a negotiation. And the man who once nodded in agreement now says, let's not rush, or that's not really practical, or I thought you'd grow out of that. And you're left wondering when your dream became an inconvenience. Future is sacred. It's not something to be given away in exchange for affection or attention. It's something to be protected and shared only with someone who has demonstrated over time that they aren't intimidated by your ambition. They don't need to dim your light to feel secure, that they aren't trying to co-opt your journey, but actually walk beside you in mutual support. When you hold your vision close, you stay grounded, you stay focused, you make choices from clarity, not loneliness. And you become deeply unattracted to anyone who tries to turn your future into a footnote in their story, because you know your path isn't a detail. It's the whole point. And anyone who doesn't respect that doesn't deserve access to it.